Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Jim, and this is Redeye Racing. This is kind of like my first vlog that I've made for the channel. I've shown you guys a lot of videos and things of, the Redeye, but, you guys don't really know anything personal about me. So this is my first attempt to get behind the camera, get to introduce myself, and get to meet, some of you guys also, if you would like to leave some comments. But like I said, my name is Jim. This is Redeye Racing. A little background for me. I live in New York. Obviously, you probably can hear the accent. I live out in East Hampton, out on Long Island. I have a 2019 Dodge Hellcat Redeye. And I also have this beautiful 2019 Ram 3500 high output dually. My background for work, I'm in the car business. Been in the car business for, I'd say, 20 years. I've done everything from selling cars. Mostly I was a finance manager. And then I did do some GMing, running stores, and things of that nature. Now, basically what I do is I still are in the car business. I buy cars at auction for Lyft and Uber. So that's what I do for a living. How'd I get started in this drag racing thing? Well, I've always loved cars my entire life. When I was 16, I had an opportunity to go to Skip Barber Racing School. I learned how to race cars, but that's more of the road racing stuff. I did have a 68 Camaro when I was 18, and I tried the drag racing thing. But compared to road racing, drag racing didn't really do it for me. I enjoyed going around corners more than a quarter of a mile at a time. So I had plenty of Corvettes and AMGs and things of that nature, and I raced at a lot of great tracks and had a lot of fun. To be honest, when I bought my 2019 Redeye, I had no aspirations of any of this stuff happening. I thought I was just going to buy a car, have some fun with it on the street, do some modifications to it. And, that was, basically it. It was just going to be another car. Until I went racing for the first time at the drag track. Now, when I first had the car, I knew, I wasn't with True Street. I wasn't with Jim. I just always knew that, hey, the best thing to do to cars is, you got to make them breathe. So I had a buddy of mine that was working on cars, and he said, sure, I could do this stuff for you. So, I bought an exhaust for the car. I bought long tube headers. At the time, they didn't make any kind of intakes. Leg Maker now makes one. Chris, he's a good friend of mine. It actually really works if you're interested in getting one of those. So I had the car, and we decided to change out the pulley to a 285. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to run flex fuel. And I remember calling Jim at True Street first time, and I'm talking to him about it. And he's basically telling me that, you can't really run flex fuel. You either gotta have to run E90 or run on 93. And if I want to run on 93, I gotta go with a higher pulley. He was telling me how these cars blow up, blah, blah, blah. I thought he was crazy. I was like, there's no way. I know about all these cars. I'll be fine. So I struggled to find somebody to tune my car, which I never thought that tuning was actually that big of a deal. But, now that, what I know now is tuning is everything in these cars. I mean, the guy who tunes your car, that's really the whole nuts and bolts of it. Back in my days, we had carburetors and, you can make some adjustments, but now, the entire car with the transmission is all run through this computer, and, you really need to know what you're doing. So I had gone through a pulley, and my pulley was slipping, and I didn't know how that happened. And so I took a shot, and I wrote to the manufacturer, not thinking that, anybody would call me back. And sure enough, the next day, this guy Paul from Litton's calls me, and he starts talking to me about my 285 pulley, and we start talking about it, and I was struggling with the car because, you know, I had this, you know, this other guy who was more of a general tuner. He worked on a lot of tuner cars and Corvettes. You know, he didn't just do Mopars. And we were really struggling with this car to get it to run right. It just never ran right. So after I was talking with Paul about the pulley, he said, hey, listen, I'm going to warranty the pulley. I'm going to send you one in the mail. And he's asked me where I lived, and he goes, well, I assume that AJ and Jim are working on your car. And I said, well, you know, I called over there, and, you know, they want to do the work on the car also, you know, in order to, you know, have it kind of like warranted. You know, you don't want to like have somebody else do the work and then somebody tune the car. So Paul's like, well, you know, AJ's a good friend of mine, and if you're really struggling with it, let me see what I can have them do for you. So I said, okay, great. So he called me back a couple hours later and gave me AJ's number, and I called AJ. Now, I had gone to a racetrack with my car, and I think the stock Redeye runs about 10.8, I think, in the quarter. Well, I was running like 11.7s. I mean, now I had no drag slicks on the car whatsoever, but I could not get traction for anything. Car wasn't running right, nothing. I mean, it was pretty horrible. So I bring it over to AJ, and he goes over my car, and he sees, you know, things that, you know, we shouldn't, you know, that shouldn't be there. There should be some changes. So I said, you know what? You know, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything else about these cars. I'm going to let you do your thing, and, you know, just let me know what I owe you. So he goes through the entire car, makes some changes. He changed, you know, I had 1050 injectors. You know, we needed much higher injectors. We needed 1750. You know, changed my pulley and did a tune on that. So I brought my car to Chicago in August of, not this August, but the August before. And right off the trailer with a pair of slicks on, because he said that I had to get slicks, or I should say Mickey Thompson. The car runs 953 off the trailer. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then from right there, I knew, hey, listen, this tuning thing is everything, and I better stay with these guys, and, you know, let's see what else we can do. And, you know, this thing just like morphed out of nowhere. I mean, you know, I never thought that I would be spending the money that I'm actually spending on this car, but, you know, I kind of fell in love with, you know, racing again. And this is a different kind of racing. And then, you know, one of the cool things is they're part of this racing series called Modern Street Hemi. And Dan, who runs it, Andy Wagner, you know, really good guys. And the guys that race in it, you know, everybody's there to have fun. You know, everybody wants to win, don't get me wrong. But, you know, it's not about winning the money. It's about, you know, it's kind of like a big family. And it really drew me in. My first event in Chicago, I mean, I drove all the way out there, and I said, you know, this is really awesome. And they have, you know, 8 to 10 races a year, and it's all Mopars. And, you know, this is where I want to be. So, you know, I was renting a trailer at the time. I was renting a truck at the time. So, you know, I knew that I would have to get a trailer, I would have to get a truck, and, you know, and I wanted to go faster. You know, AJ told me, he said, you know, how fast do you want to go in the car? And at the time I was like, I want to see if I can break 9s, because, you know, the Redeye at the time, the fastest one was actually AJ's, and his was a 918 that he ran in his. So, so we're still in Chicago, and this is when I had my first engine experience. So, after I run 953, the next date is a car show, and it's on Woodward Avenue, and we go to Woodward Avenue, and I was with a bunch of guys, and, you know, there's all these people doing burnouts out on Woodward Avenue. And I was about to pull into the parking lot, and the guys that I were with called me up. They're like, oh, come on, man, you know, you got to do a burnout. So I was like, all right, you know what, I could do a burnout, no big deal. Well, I didn't realize at the time that all the burnouts that I have been doing have always been in the burnout box. And, you know, when you drag race and when you do a burnout in a burnout box, there's a lot of laid down rubber there. And, you know, there's resistance. Well, on this concrete street, I went to go do a burnout, and this thing had no resistance whatsoever. I'm in first gear, it bangs off the rev limiter. I try to shift it quickly into second. Boom, the car blows up. The car's on fire. I'm kind of stunned. I'm looking at fire coming out of my hood. Don't know what to do. I get out, don't know if the car's going to burn to the ground. And then, you know, I don't know how many people are at this event. I mean, I know there was thousands of people. Before I know it, people are pouring coolers on my engine, water, beer. I mean, everybody's pitching in to, you know, to help, help my car not burn to the ground. And I'm just kind of standing in the background, like, stunned. I mean, I was absolutely stunned that, oh my God, I just blew my engine in my car. And my car at the time had about 1,200 miles on it. And I was like, oh my God. So we're putting it back on the trailer. AJ and Jim were at the event, and they were great. I mean, they came up to me and they were like, I remember AJ putting his arm around me, and he goes, listen, I know that your pride's hurt. You know, you just blew your motor, but don't you worry. I have motors at the shop. He goes, we're going to change this motor, and the motor is going to be the strongest motor ever, and you're never going to have to worry about it again. And those numbers that you want to achieve, we're going to be able to achieve that. And then when the car was back, within a week, engine was out of the car. The car was, all the fire extinguisher stuff was washed out of it. And then we went over the motor, and I started to learn about these cars. And I started to learn about, the components and everything that in the cars. Now, I have general automotive knowledge, I would say, but I would say that's very general. I didn't know that the weak point of the motor was the bottom end. And he showed me the parts, and these parts were just like they're like sprayed with a resin. And that was really all that it was to that car. So needless to say, a month goes by. We're at the next event, and I run a 928 off the trailer with my new fully built motor. So, I made leaps and bounds, and then, I developed a friendship with AJ and Jim, and, those guys are, the best. And, I have people that, contact me on my Instagram all the time, and they ask me for my advice, and, because I've kind of been through the ringer. I kind of know what works now and what doesn't work. And AJ and Jim are just unbelievable. I'm so fortunate that, I have them, in my corner in order to, make this racing thing go. And, once they saw how serious I was and where I wanted